Yo, have you heard about Anchor? It's the easiest way to make a podcast. Let me explain. It's free. There's creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer. Anchor will distribute your podcast for you so it can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and many more. You can make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership. It's everything you need to make a podcast in one place. Download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. Welcome, everyone, to the L7C podcast, UFC edition. Today, we are going to be catching you up on what's been going on in the UFC world, of past events, of things to come from now until the rest of 2021. So we have our UFC expert. He is back, Mr. Chuck Marlowe. How are you doing today, sir?
I could be doing better. A little under the weather, but still doing pretty good. Excited to be back here.
Chuck, it's been a while, and last Marlowe that we did have was your wife, Mrs. Carly Marlowe, when she talked about women in gaming, and a lot of people have been digging that episode of hers.
Definitely, yeah. I remember that was about, 2 months ago, I'd say. But yeah, I like the podcast that she did. She did really well. I'm excited for her to see what else she has in store for you guys next.
That's right. Can't wait to have her back. So basically, we're going to be talking some UFC. Chuck's going to be going over stuff that's happened in the past that we missed, things going on. We're going to talk about UFC 268 and 269 a bit, just highlight the big matches. We're going to talk about Jon Jones' recent arrest, because everyone, if you've listened to these podcasts, you know Chuck is a big Jon Jones fan. And we're going to talk about some serious stuff with Luis Peña, and the disturbing allegations that's led to his UFC release. So, Chuck, man, first off, what's been going on in the UFC world right now? Like, what's some past stuff? Like, where are we at?
Man, so we have new championship holders. We have a lot of stuff lining up here soon. 3 UFC fighters, current and retired, arrested recently in the past 30 days for domestic violence. We got a lot going on right now in the UFC world, setting up here for the future.
Who right now are our top champions still in the sport?
Obviously, Amanda Nunes, number one. She's right there. You have Francis Ngannou still, with Cyril Gane holding the interim title. They'll say in terms of our best fighters we have right now, Volkanovski, he just put on an amazing performance and showed why he should be holding on to that belt. You look at Adesanya, he's still holding his weight in his division. And of course, Kamaru Usman dominating right now, just showing why he deserves to have that belt. Just every single opponent who comes his way, he's smashing them right now.
And then with those top people, who are the top contenders still right now as of October 2021?
Right now, in the current rankings, you're looking at the top right now for bantamweights. I'd say it's Sandhagen. You got to look at Peter Yan, Dillashaw. That division in bantamweight is one of my most exciting ones right now currently, because if you look at the top 10 in the rankings right now, matter of fact, top 20. If you look at the top 20 in the rankings for that belt, that whole bantamweight division is loaded right now. Like, any of those fighters could compete for the title any given night right now. Obviously, for the flyweight division, you got Figueiredo, who's the number one contender for that belt. They're going to have their part 3 fight coming up here in January. For the featherweight division, you obviously have Holloway after Ortega just took a loss to Volkanovski. So Holloway bumped his way up recently. Dustin Poirier, who you know is about to fight for the belt here soon, and is the number one contender for Oliveira. Covington and Usman. Whitaker and Adesanya, hopefully to be announced soon. And then Glover Teixeira, obviously, for Jan Blachowicz.
Okay. All right. And then we got some big pay-per-views coming up. We got 268, which is November 6, 2021, and 269, which is December 11th, 2021. Is 269 the last big one of the year?
It's the last big one of the year that I can recall, because I think the one for 270 is in January 22nd. So that's the last one for the year is 269.
Okay.
So obviously they're going to want to put on a show.
Right. Let's go a little bit into 268. So I see we got Usman versus Covington. Why is Covington getting another title match? Is it for the title?
Yes, it is for the title. Okay. The reason Covington's getting another title match, because honestly, he's the only fighter that anyone's really seen put a true question mark on Usman in their title fight. Everyone else that Usman has came up against, he's smashed them. I know Covington hasn't fought in a long time, and I hate when the UFC does this. They just see a fighter come back and they just automatically throw him in for the belt. I honestly hate when they do that, but I think he's kind of deserving, because honestly, he's the only person who I've seen put a little bit of a question mark in a fight for Kamaru Usman.
How do you see that fight going when it happens?
I see Kamaru Usman probably second, third round KO. I think it's going to be a little bit of a dogfight, because I think Covington's always going to have a chin on him, and he's going to be able to eat some of those hits. And I just think Kamaru Usman is a more polished fighter at this stage in his career. And every time he comes out, he's making an improvement. He's always making enhancements on himself. And I just think he's going to come out there and just dominate again and just show why he's probably one of the best fighters in this weight division, and probably in one of the history of MMA right now.
I see Frankie Edgar is on this card. He's still fighting. How's he doing?
He's still out there. He's putting up some fights. He's up there in age, but obviously he's going against Chito Vera, who's younger, way younger than him. But I think that it's still something that he can do. We'll see if he's washed or not. But they wanted to feed into the hype and then see what else he can do at this point in his career.
Okay. And then what other fights on the 268 card are you looking forward to?
Obviously, Rose Namajunas and Zhang Weili.
Yeah, I see that's on the cover of the fight. That's
the other one. So obviously, Zhang is the number one contender here. She's coming back for her belt with a vengeance after getting knocked out with a brutal kick last time. I can't wait for this one. This one, I think, will be a fight of the year type of fight. Like 5 round, goes to decision, and the best fighter's going to be raising their hand at the end of it. And that one, I'm going to take Rose, unfortunately. I think Zhang Weili has power, and she can catch her, and she can maybe get her in a knockout. But I just think Rose is very polished at this point in her career. She's very confident in herself. She's been doing a lot of self-motivation, and I think that she's on the right track to defend her belt for maybe a few more fights.
Then there's another fight who's on the cover of the 268 card. I'm trying to see who. Chandler?
Gaethje and Chandler?
Yeah.
So this one, I'd say, is the fight of the hype, but also this is a fight that everyone's been wanting to see since Chandler's came in. Obviously, everyone loves Chandler. He got that title fight and obviously showed that he was not ready for it. He was humbled. He came in after that one fight and he said he's going to come back with a vengeance. So he's going against number 2 contender, Justin Gaethje, who's coming off his loss for the title fight too. So I think that this is a good time for both of these fighters to show what they have and what they can offer for a title fight. Michael Chandler has a bigger something to prove than Gaethje, because Gaethje showed it against other fighters in the division, as to where Michael Chandler's only been here for a little while and only had 2 fights, and he won 1 and he lost 1. So it's kind of a proving point for him right here with this one.
Okay. Any other of these fights The prelims always they're on ESPN, ESPN Plus. And if you have the UFC Fight Pass, and the main card headlined by Usman versus Colby Covington. If Usman wins, where does he go?
Usman, if he wins this, he goes to another level where you start to talk, okay, do we go a different weight division from here? Because at this point, he's cleared out that weight division. He's shown why he's the pound for pound best. This is where you start getting into legendary status, where you start talking Hall of Fame level belt running, title run. You want to try and look at what other people he can fight in different divisions, who can come down and maybe challenge him, who can come up and challenge him. You might get into talks of against Conor McGregor, maybe, because everyone wants to always see Conor in the ring, even after what's happened to him recently and his injury. So he's always talking to Usman on Twitter and everything, obviously, just because they know that's probably something that they can sell box office if he beats Covington.
And you brought up his name, Conor McGregor. I mean, like, but besides him being a draw, who really wants to fight him? Like, I'm at the point, Chuck, where I don't know if I want to see Conor McGregor fight anymore, because it's looking like he's not really putting in that work anymore. He's not hungry.
So this is the thing. A lot of MMA, a lot of diehard, true day one MMA fans are tired of him. They're sick of him. A lot of people in the sport are sick of him. It's not good for the sport. Obviously, with his last loss when he was in the ring throwing this little tantrum, I think we really all saw Conor for who he is. Conor's a great guy, great businessman, true American success story. But he, at the end of the day, he's a baby. He throws tantrums. He's childish. He's immature. He needs to grow up some. He needs to work on some things. I understand he was embarrassing. He was at an all-time low. You just broke your ankle and you have an interviewer coming and squatting down next to you at your lowest moment, probably in a long time in your life. So I can understand the outrage. I can understand a little bit of the pain and stuff like that he's going through, but the way that he's going about it isn't the best way.
And last thing on Conor and stuff, Chuck, too, because I know that you were talking, you saw the heavyweight fight between Fury and Wilder going into boxing, but going into that was, how do you feel then about the Paul brothers calling out Conor? Like, how do you feel about them, like, really have infiltrated this fight game, and now there's this fan base for the celebrity YouTuber fight world?
Yeah, so because of that, it's opening up new ways, new markets for people to make money. You're a big successful YouTuber. Hey, I'm gonna fight this successful YouTuber. We can throw up some Triller TikTok fight card, and we can put a lot of entertainment and concerts into this, and we can get a lot of streamers and a lot of people who will come in and buy in to watch this. It's a big market right now because everyone's making a lot of money off of it. It's the best one. It's one of the best ways to make money because boxers get paid more than UFC fighters. Mm-hmm. And so that's why a lot of MMA fighters are entertaining them, because they know that they could get a good payday out of it. But some of them want to stay true to the fact is they're disrespecting the art of combat sports. You're making it about, hey, let's do this little fight, make it look staged, just so that way we can get some money and get a big payday, and we'll both walk our ways with our money in our pockets looking heavy.
Do you, I guess with that as well, because I know the Pauls have been critical of Dana White about telling them to pay his fighters, and I know you've talked about this as well. Like, does he need to pay his fight? Like, how much more does he need to pay his fighters? Like, how much is he taking in compared to his fighters?
And taking it to compared to what his fighters are making, he's making a lot more, because I can't remember off the top of my head what his net worth is, but if you look at it based and compared to a lot of his other fighters, he's taking in a tremendous amount more. I understand that running those promotions and stuff, they cost, that you have to pay stuff, but then at the same time, you have your own performance center where a lot of these fights are taking place. There's somewhere in those cracks where a lot of this money is going, and it's not going to the fighters. Because like I said, talking to you about, like, some of those fighters, we make only like $20,000 per fight. And that's like if you're on like a prelim. If you're like main card, you're like 100,000 maybe. Like if you're like the fight of the night, you're getting 100,000 and maybe like a 50,000 or 100,000 bonus. So you're maybe bringing home a few 100,000. And then if you look at like some of the bigger fights, like Jon Jones is only bringing like on his best card, I think he brought home like maybe 10, 18 million. You look at a boxer, they're sitting there bringing in like 90, sometimes 95, maybe 50 million. They're bringing in such a drastically different number. And if you're not that top-notch fighter and you're not getting people in, you're not making that much money, honestly. You're making maybe a 20,000 on one fight, but then you have to take out taxes, which will end up being like maybe 16, 17,000. And a lot of those fighters, you're only fighting 3 to 4 months on. So that's only like maybe 4 times 13. You're looking at like maybe $52,000 a year. I make more than that. I sit at a computer. I mean, that's why a lot of them work a regular job.
Right. I do think that Conor Floyd fight, even though financially it did him wonders, but from a UFC standpoint, I think that was the worst thing that's ever happened to him because I think he's only won one fight since that.
Yeah.
And like he's just been getting thrashed.
With Donald Cerrone, who's old and washed.
Right. But enough about him. Let's go to 269, where someone who did just beat Conor. We have Dustin Poirier. He is going to be fighting on this card. And Amanda Nunes is going to be on this card. Is that right, Chuck?
Correct, she is. So she'll be fighting Juliana Peña for her belt, who I think is one of the fighters. She gave her a little bit of a run, but I don't think it was anything to really truly worry about. So I see this being a dominantly fashionable win for her again.
When was Amanda's last fight? Because I feel like it's been a minute.
I think her last fight was a year ago, and I can't even remember off the top of my head of who it was. Because I remember it was like a 50-45 fight, like dominated every single round, and it was just the level of her performance was just too good. It was just like, why is she even fighting her? Why does she even get the chance to fight her?
Mm-hmm. Okay, and then I'm assuming she's the main event. Like, are they going to make Dustin the main event? Like, I'm seeing some name like Dustin after he just beat Conor again. He's going for that lightweight championship against Charles. Like, who's the main event? Who's going to be the last fight of this card?
The main event's probably going to be, I don't know, because this is the thing. It's the end of the year.
Mm-hmm.
So this is the time. This is going to be the last card of the year. They want to stir the pot before the end of the year. So I see them adding an Adesanya probably and Robert Whittaker. They're going to try and probably get them in talks to make that fight happen on that day. I can see that happening. But I think Charles Oliveira and Dustin Poirier will probably be up there for the final one. And then they're probably trying to talk to get Cyril Gane and Francis Ngannou to probably fight. So they might try to have 5 title fights, honestly, on this last one. And any one of those 5 can honestly be the main event. I don't think the Amanda Nunes one should be, honestly, because we think that she's probably just going to dominate her and it's going to be another fight where we're like, oh, Amanda Nunes is dominant. What's new?
Mm-hmm. Like, because I'm seeing Jorge Masvidal on here versus Leon Edwards. I'm seeing Cody, Ray Allen Garbrandt from Cleveland, Ohio on here. Like, I'm seeing, like, there's a lot of fights that have been announced. Dominic Cruz. Like, Chuck, how many of these fights, and you just named some fights that aren't even on here, then how long could this pay-per-view be? And like, is this something that you don't do on UFC and you potentially do on like an ABC? Like, what do you do with this one if it's going to be this big?
They'll probably still do it on ESPN Plus as a pay-per-view and try and sell it because this would probably be a high point. I could see them even moving the fights that you just listed off. I could see them putting those on prelims and trying to make a loaded, stacked all 5 fight title fight for like the main event card. I wouldn't put it on ABC because I think it'll get paid pretty good out of it, but I think that if you can get everyone in on the ESPN and you're buying, you could probably get pocket a lot more and pay out those fighters like you would want to do because you're going to have a lot of high level fights and you're going to have to pay a lot of fighters if you do end up doing a card like that.
So, I mean, and where is this? Is this going to be Vegas?
Probably Vegas. It's the only place that's really like popping right now for them.
Do they still have Fight Island?
Last time I checked, I don't think they have it right now. I think they've been running out of the Apex in Vegas right now.
This is going to be a huge card. I saw an interview with Dustin that he was on a couple days ago, and like, I'll be excited. I feel like, though, I know that's going to be the biggest challenger going for a title. So I feel like they'll do a Dustin and Amanda's matches, or like they'll like make it co-main events, or like, how they do it sometimes. But someone who is not on this card is your guy, one of arguably the greatest of all time, Jon Jones, in the news for alleged domestic violence charges. He came out with a couple of tweets saying that he never hit his fiance. I didn't even know he was engaged. I didn't even know he had kids. And their daughters were never woken up. They didn't see us arguing. And he's made some tweets saying actions speak louder than words. I'm not hiring a PR person or a publicist. I'm not doing anything like that. Chuck, you're a big Jon Jones fan. He'd never just stay out of the news. What are we doing with him now?
This is where I depart my Jon Jones train. This is where I hop off the bandwagon. It doesn't sit right with me. It doesn't sit well with me. Anytime you get into a domestic violence situation, being a father, being a husband, having a kid, having a wife, having a daughter myself, and after hearing he put his kids through kind of in that situation, I'm not a fan anymore. I always root for him, to get better in life and like move on into better things, and hopefully he'll succeed in everything he wants to do. But it dropped him from my favorite fighter, my fandom. It's diminished because it's a situation. From what I'm hearing, what I've said, and what I've read, I obviously looked into it immediately when it came out. Basically, he came home from that Hall of Fame induction for the fight against Alexander that they had, which was an amazing fight. Apparently, he was agitated when he came home. She tried to leave the room. Apparently, this is the hotel room at Caesar's Palace. His daughters were in an opposite room. I mean, they were there in the room. They were present. Like when this all happened. And I guess she was trying to leave the room. He pulled her by her hair, and then some security guard or officer came up, and I guess she was talking to her. The security officer said, "Hey, I don't feel comfortable, I don't feel safe going back up there." Took the kids, and they went to the security place, and the daughter asked, "Is it okay if we call the cops? Can I call the cops?" That's where it's kind of like you put your daughters through the situation. Apparently she had a blood on her lip. The wife did. So who knows what all really happened. The officer asked her if she got physical with him. She said, not really. He didn't get super physical or anything, which shows me she was in a state of fear, and she's in a state of protection for him because she understands that he provides for her and those kids. And then for him to put his hands on her and frighten her, that's where I lose my respect for Jon, because you're a 255 pound man, because at the event he announced his weight. He's 6'6", 255, big guy. You never should put your hands on a woman, number one. And then you have your MMA background. There's no situation with your wife where you should ever have to put your hands on her. So I jumped off that Jon Jones train. I think that his wife's going to protect him only for security reasons, knowing that she still loves him probably, and she's in a situation she shouldn't be in. I just hope he gets better in life. I think he needs to have some form of counseling, needs to do some talking, some therapy or something, but there's something that he needs to work on in himself, because this trouble keeps rising every single time.
So you said something very interesting on there, Chuck, about you being now a husband and a father to a daughter now. And he has had his history of stuff way before you got married or had a child. So was you now being a dad and a husband the turning point and having this situation? If this was another cocaine thing, would you still be on the bandwagon? Or is it, since this was DV and you're like, hold on, I have a wife and I have a child now, I can't be supporting this?
Yeah, definitely. I draw my line at certain points from a moral standpoint. I mean, I can understand if you have a drug problem. Addiction is a problem that a lot of people go through. So there's a way around that. But there's a way I can see past it because there's probably something mentally wrong that you need to work on. Mm-hmm. But when it comes to domestic violence, that's the point where I draw across, because that's something I would never condone. And I just think that's just where you have to really draw the line.
Okay. So then also with another, which we're going to be, I know we're talking some serious stuff on here, but this is what we do. We don't shy away from anything. Another thing with Luis Peña, Chuck, what happened with, this is another domestic violence arrest. And this one was bad enough that they parted ways with him. Like, they didn't part ways with Jon Jones because it's probably ongoing pending, but they parted ways with Peña, man. So what happened here?
So the reason why Jones wasn't released as to where Peña was released, his was more serious, more physical, much more dangerous event where the girl doesn't feel safe and she wants to press those charges. As to where Jones' situation, his wife isn't going to press charges, most likely won't. It's going to be something that just goes below and they'll slide through the case. So with him, Peña, he punched her dead in the face. He was choking her, bit her on the knee. There was a bunch of different situations. A friend tried to jump in and stop him. He then hit her in the face. And then, like, the girlfriend originally, she didn't want to snitch but since he was being since he was being so violent, like, she had to, because she wanted to protect him. It was another case where you get these fighters, these people who are on an elevated status where they might end up making a lot of money and providing that security. She was like, oh, wait, I want to protect him. But then he was just being that physically violent towards them. And this is a UFC fighter, so he's skilled in striking. He's skilled in this stuff. Your hands are legalized weapons. So that's where that's why he got released, because it was just that brutal of an event.
And then with that, his career is over, right? No other
his career will take over. He may be able to get on to another type of promotion or something, but I don't see it being back with the UFC ever. I mean, I know that the UFC takes in domestic violence cases. I mean, look at Greg Hardy. Look at a lot of other fighters there. I mean, if you look at MMA, there's a lot of cases of domestic violence and stuff like that. But I just see his being very bad to where everyone's like, no, we're just going to let it go, because he also wasn't performing well. So I think that's where Dana sees. If he was a top-notch fighter, maybe Dana would try to save him, but he's not. So that's why Dana's like, we'll just cut our ways.
So it's looking like, and I guess, and I don't want to, if Luis Peña was a bigger star, would he have a bigger leash on this?
Yes. Okay. Dana always gives his stars leashes. I understand it's a bad situation. He probably would have invoked some type of penalty or to him or something. But I feel like if he was like on a Conor McGregor level, he would probably get slapped on the wrist, and then Dana would still work with him. Okay. Chuck, man, anything else going on with UFC? You went over 2 big pay-per-views that are going to close out the year. Then we're going to be back talking about those pay-per-views. Anything else big with the UFC? I know she's not in the UFC anymore, but now Ronda Rousey is a mom, so congratulations to her. Ronda. But anything else, Chuck, that's happening that that the fans need to know? Well, one of the other ones I wanted to get out there was the Chuck Liddell situation, because I wanted to make sure anyone who didn't really read up on the situation kind of knew about the situation. His situation with domestic violence was more, his wife has more of a mental breakdown and she needs to seek therapy. And he was getting beat by her and he just stood his ground and he didn't do anything. He didn't put his hands on her. He just basically took it, and he turned himself in so that she wouldn't get arrested. It's a family matter that they're working on. want everyone to know that, because if they think that maybe he did something, he hit her, that wasn't the case. But other things going on in the UFC, look for a lot of cards and fights to be announced, hopefully here soon. All the titles are moving around. Everyone's starting to solidify their place if they already had the belt for a while. I'm hoping to hear Whitaker versus Adesanya announced very soon, because I know the talks are heating up for that. And then obviously Gain versus Francis Ngannou. And then we're going to see a lot of fighters starting to make some things happen for themselves. Some fighters are going to put on some big fights here, and they're going to show why they should be number one contenders coming up here soon. I'm excited low-key for the Sugar Sean show, see what Sean O'Malley can do in his next fight, because I think I want to see what he does and if he elevates himself to another level, or if he's going to stay in his younger ways.
Okay. Chuck, there was one question that's been brought up to me a couple months ago when we were talking about the top sports in America. And obviously football, number one, college, NFL, then you have the NBA. And then it was asked about, what do you think the third sport is? Sure, people brought baseball up. But I said, where do you think UFC ranks in the top sports that people watch and consume in the United States?
I'd say I don't think it's a top three.
Okay.
Top five, maybe even a debate, because there's a lot of sports here in the U.S. Because the U.S., that's the thing about the U.S., we're a melting pot. We have people of all different walks of life. So whatever country or background they have, they might have a favorite sport, and they may be able to influence others here to that sport. So obviously soccer nationally is on a big level. I say we're probably we're in the top 10 for sure, but I don't know. Top 5 is debatable for MMA right now. It's still a combat sport. It's still a sport that people don't get too easy with. Because if I try to show it to my mom on TV, she's not going to watch it, but she'll sit there and she'll watch someone run up and down the court. So It's not a sport for everyone.
Got you. Chuck, any last things you want to shout out? I know it's been a minute. If you want to give your where they can find your UFC tweets on Twitter or your Twitch or YouTube, if you're talking UFC there or anything like that.
So you can follow me on Twitch, Chuck the Duck MMA. I'll definitely always talk sports, MMA during my streams. I stream Madden 2K, Chuck the Duck MMA on Twitter. So you can watch during the fights. I'll announce tweets. I'll have different comments and stuff. Like recently for the Wilder and Fury fight, I was on there during the whole fight, giving my 2 cents. But yeah, those are my 2 big ones. Chucky the Ducky for YouTube. I have some videos coming up soon. I'm just working on getting them uploaded. Last one got copyrighted, so
oh no.
I gotta work on some things.
Okay. With that being said, thank you, Chuck, for being on the L7C podcast as always, and being our UFC, even our fighting guy, talking about what's going on in fights. We hit a lot of things. We had 2 UFC pay-per-views that are ending the year. We talked about the place of celebrity boxing. We talked about where UFC ranks in the top sports in America. We hit some serious topics about the past domestic violence charges that have happened with some top UFC stars currently and retired. And Chuck will be back talking some UFC, and you'll be seeing Chuck later down the road, maybe starting off in 2022. We have Chuck and Carly on and talk about some games together and what it's like being a gaming couple. And then we go from there. And with that being said, thank you everyone for listening to the L7C podcast. You guys take care. Thank you for listening to this episode of the L7C podcast. Be sure to like, rate, review, and subscribe to the channel. Follow us on all social media platforms, and we'll be talking to you guys soon. Take care.